Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, and we've got our monthly webinar. And this month, is going to be a lot of fun. There's a really cool story that goes behind this, and I've got a guest speaker that shares the same name as myself. Interestingly, and over the last several months, Scott and I have become friends, so I want to share a little bit about that. But I asked Scott about a month ago if he could take some of his time and come and speak to some of my audience and my fans. I felt like that Scott was really able to provide value to my life in different ways, and I wanted to be able to share some of that and how it was applied into the business world and whatnot. And I genuinely feel that once you guys have an opportunity to hear this, man, and take a little bit of your time today, you're going to find that your investment of your time today could very likely be life-changing. You know, we talk about levers, we talk about leverage, we talk about the 80-20 rule. You know, simple little changes in here have massive impacts over here. And some of the challenges I've had in life is identifying just those little things to be able to tweak here and there. And ultimately, to me, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I went to school for several years, and I tried to work in the corporate world in Toronto for several years. I did very well. But the things that are important to me at the end of the day are really the items that I have control on, and that's my time. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. That's something I can't buy. And you know, everybody says, well, we strive for happiness in different ways, and there's different things that bring us happiness. And you know, if I'm running around my house in the morning looking for my wallet, and you know, that brings me a little bit of frustration, and this adds up over time. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to be happy. And in my opinion, you're happy when you've got memories. But to be happy, one thing that we know we need is our time. And so having said that, I felt some great value into putting together this quick little webinar, inviting you guys on and having a chance to meet Scott. Now, we are going to be having a discussion back and forth. I've got some questions for Scott, and how some of his life findings have been able to be translated into both the business world and the personal world. In any event, just before I bring Scott on, I just want to talk a little bit about Local Marketing Source and myself. A lot of you know who I am. Some of you don't know who I am. But my name is Scott Gallagher. I've been around with Local Marketing Source now for 3.5 years. And just let me pull this slide up here for you. A little bit easier to follow along with. First off, I'm a dad. I've got 2 children, and well, that's what time is all about. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. My kids, I love them to death. I'm an author. I love to write. I like businesses, and an adrenalinist. I like to go out and have fun. You know, whether it's jumping out of a plane or flying down the snowboard mountain. Never really got a chance this year. It's been a really strange year. As I mentioned, I spent a lot of money on school. Got myself a Bachelor of Commerce, 2 specialties in marketing and economics. It just collects a lot of dust. And in 2005, I founded my first internet marketing agency. We serviced the transportation industry. That led me to find a business called NAPRX, National Parcel Express. NAPRX is a national same-day delivery company operating in the United States. I'm now a minority owner of that company. And then in 2009, founded Local Marketing Source that's invited you here today. And LMS is an online training portal. We've got hundreds of different videos that provide training for entrepreneurs, local business owners, as well as marketers. And then I founded the Accelerator Program for Online Marketers. It was the first training program that's out there. It's still in existence today, and we've got some very active members at Local Marketing Source for an extremely affordable fee. Just so you know, I'm not here to pitch the product or service or company, but we do have a risk-free guarantee as well. And I do a lot of speaking engagements. For example, I may be familiar with StomperNet or Stomper Local. They've got some pretty cool events. And then One Marketing is now an internet marketing agency in Chicago focusing on service-based businesses. So, having said that, Local Marketing Source, well, as I was mentioning, is an online portal providing local internet marketing training to marketing specialists and business owners. So with that and with some of that training, we've tried a whole different types of training, from technical training, a little bit of business training, some accounting, very heavy in the operations. But today, it's about behaviors, and it's about habits. And Scott's going to talk about, well, so let me put it this way. Some of you, or some people, may call him an addiction specialist. And I'll get into my story here. Everybody has Googled their own name. Well, one day, about a year ago, I Googled my own name, Scott Gallagher. And what came up was a soccer club in St. Louis, very popular, prominent soccer club, and another gentleman by the name of Scott Gallagher located out of Toronto. Well, I happen to live in Toronto, and so I thought that was pretty cool. And when I went and checked this guy out, he's a good-looking guy, bald, but he was an addiction specialist. And I personally am struggling with different addictions. At the time, I didn't know what addiction meant, and I didn't really recognize, I wasn't accountable to the notion that I may be addicted. And ultimately, as I started to learn about what addiction really is, I recognized that in all areas of my life, whether it be popping in on Facebook, smoking a cigarette, habits of or rituals in the morning, that ultimately, as you start to take a look at your life in a big picture and identify it, I recognized that I had certain habits in my life that were taking up a lot of my time. And if I could just reorganize certain habits in different ways, I would free up a lot of my time. Or there could be the example of business processes that you go through and you look at a particular process and identify in certain areas that if you could shave off certain time or certain aspects here that have to do with negative habits that ultimately don't result in positive results, you can improve yourself. And so the challenge that I got was, well, how can I look at the different aspects of my life and apply this concept, this guy that I found, this habit master habit master breaker, Scott Gallagher. How can I start looking at some of the aspects that he's got and apply it to my life? So I dug into his content and ultimately communicated with him. And it was a little trippy at first. You know, I'd call him up and I'd hear his voicemail and, hey Scott, how you doing, Scott? And it was bizarre. It was definitely trippy. And then you'd go to leave a mail. Hi, thank you for contacting Scott Gallagher. Hey Scott Gallagher, it's Scott Gallagher. So we had a lot of laughs and a lot of fun. But when we started to get down to it, and I started to hear this man, it was brilliant. In any event, I'm just so excited to bring this gentleman here. I can see that I'm really starting to talk a lot. And we haven't even heard of this man actually exists. He is a real person. So, Scott, I can see that you're now on the line. And I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy day today. And thank you for giving your time to Local Marketing Source. Are you there?
Yeah, you can hear me?
I sure can, Scott. How are you, man?
Great. Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be speaking with you. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. You know, I was just, as you were probably listening and sharing some of our history and our story, and I could still remember being on the back deck up in Canada and just pacing back and forth with the excitement that I'd hear, and how you'd sit there and listen, and then ultimately say, well, have you thought about this or thought about that? And I was just amazed, Scott, at the little things that you can tweak in life that ultimately improve our lives and give us more time, that really are these bad habits.
That's a really good. I've been waiting for the opportunity to address that, because when you labeled me the master bad habit breaker, and you're referring to me as an addiction specialist, I thought that is so cool, because that actually allows me to segue into, I guess you could say, a teaching. I don't consider myself an addiction specialist. In fact, my ebook, Addiction and Choice, I quote like about 6 or 7 addiction experts that all disagree with each other. And then I say, so what is the real meaning of addiction? And I go, well, nobody can agree, so you might as well just make up whatever meaning serves you and that works for you. And this thing about even a bad habit breaker, and I realize it kind of looks like that with some of the work that I do, but the paradox is that I don't look at myself as a habit breaker or a bad habit breaker. In fact, the word bad, the word addiction, that is, in my experience with all the people that I work with, whether it's business, whether it's life coaching, or yes, sometimes people think they have addictions. The last person I worked with is a transgender person that came to see me, a coaching session, because he wanted me to help him get to the root of his problem of being transgender. And as I listened to him, I said, the problem is that you won't, is not the transgender, it's that you're not expressing it. And so I went out on Easter and went to a gay bar with him, because he hadn't dressed up as a woman in 3 years. It was really clear that what he thought was the problem wasn't the problem. And the more you give, the more energy you give to trying to figure out, how do I break this bad habit? How do I, and sometimes we call these bad habits addictions, so that we can really stay obsessed in the problem. We stay stuck. So all my work really is about listening to people so that they feel that they're loved, they're not judged, and they're open to the possibility that there's nothing about them that's bad, there's nothing about what they're doing that's bad, but if you like, maybe we can explore some other things that maybe you might want to do that you feel will bring you peace and joy that you might label good. So the work I do is actually not in breaking a bad habit, but in creating new structures, new communities, new habits, to move people in the direction of where they want to go, as opposed to being stuck in obsessing about what's not.
Well, first off, it's 15 minutes into our local internet marketing webinar, and you were sharing a story about transgender. I bet we had a few people that moved off their seat, but at the same time, as human beings, everybody, I guess they say, has got demons in their closet one way or another. And let's face it, whether we're talking about, in the United States, gay marriage is a really hot topic, and it's surely not something that should be discussed too much in business. But let's face it, these are items that do exist. And as I hear you speak, Scott, one thing that I find so intriguing is that in our lives, whether we talk about items like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, us as human beings, we all have certain specific needs. But these needs are the same thing whether we're in the business world. I'm a dad, and I've taken some parenting classes and recognized, holy shit, there's items in my parenting classes that I apply to the business world. And especially even more so is intimate relationships. And I think that there's just a real big connection between behaviors, habits that we have in our business world with our parental world and our relationship world. And I think we could see a lot of parallels, and that's almost what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of, the thing about, I just kind of got stuck on when you mentioned the transgender. So I just want to say, the reason I bring that up, and I should probably say, I went to a gay bar. I'm not gay, but you know, when you say the hierarchy of needs, I believe people, you know, that deep need that people are coming to me for, whether it's like, as you know, I was in Edmonton for a week doing business coaching and transforming a culture in an organization. But the deep need that people have is to be, you know, unconditionally accepted and understood and loved. And I know those are not business words, but you did talk about intimate relationships, and really it's all connected. And so, hey, I'm sitting here with a person for 4 hours, and the only time they seem to come alive is that one moment where they talk about what it used to be like when they used to dress up as a woman. Now, yeah, that's kind of weird for me. I mean, I cannot understand that. I cannot understand what it's like to be gay, but I can respect and appreciate that. And these are and to be able to do that, I think it's really powerful because, you know, a lot of times we have clients, we have business, you know, we go on business, business deals or business meetings, and we're judging and we're assessing and we're making people wrong, and we got an agenda, and we're just judging and assessing. And it doesn't bring intimacy. It doesn't bring trust. It doesn't bring this feeling of affinity between you and the person you want to possibly do business with. And so I think it's kind of cool this transgender thing's recent, but really what it speaks to is, you know, making people right. Maybe not agreeing with them, but choosing to see what they're doing and who they are in a positive way as opposed to a bad way, which brings us back to the, you know, bad habits. Like, I don't break bad habits, but certainly if I was, one of the bad habits that I've observed that really just kill businesses and kill the human spirit is judgment, you know, blaming, complaining, looking at what's wrong with someone, looking at what you think they need to fix, you know, controlling and all that. And so the opposite habit is one that I teach and one that I'm constantly developing, and I'm not an expert at it, and that's the habit of looking at what's right, what's good, and what's the positive, what's the benefit here. So when my mind says, hey, this really sucks, I don't like this person, or I don't like this situation, I'm like, automatically now, because I'm teaching this so often, I'm looking for, well, what's good about this? What could be good about this? What's the opportunity in this? And what's interesting, as as we all know, thoughts cause feelings. So to the extent which I choose to master and teach the habit of, you know, choosing my thoughts, focusing on what's good, what's positive, it causes me to feel more peaceful. And when I'm feeling more peaceful, I'm attractive and people want to do business with me. People want to follow me.
Yeah. Man, you know, I'm smiling ear to ear right now, and you know, last night I had a friend over, and he asked me, he says, have you ever watched the documentary The Secret? I said, yeah, I've seen that. He says, well, what's The Secret? Well, I think the documentary on Netflix is a little over the top, a little Hollywood. But getting back to the book of The Secret, it's ultimately the law of attraction, and I'm a firm believer of that in a certain sense. But unlike the documentary, it says, you know, hey, I want more money, just visualize more money, it's going to come to you. Well, no, it doesn't work like that, but I believe it's exactly with what you described, is that, you know, inside, we're happier inside, and it ultimately tends to show through, and that energy comes through one way or another, whether we describe that energy through holistic means, you know, spirits or auras, or through scientific means of saying, you know, our skin looks better, or we feel healthier, or we look better, and we got better energy, or our mental state. I think these are all big things, but one thing that, one big word that I think is really important in the business world / relationship / parental world is blaming and ultimately accountability. And I think far too often that people, when criticism is put out into the business world, whether it be criticizing a particular client or criticizing a coworker or contractor or employee, that criticism tends to be absorbed as, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I've made a mistake, you know, and we don't look at it like, hey, I've made a mistake. And we tend to forget that it's okay to make mistakes. And so at that point in time, it's far too easy for us to miss the concept of accountability. But to me, accountability is something that's extremely important. inside the business place, within myself, and admitting that when I'm wrong. And I can't emphasize the feeling it has once I recognize that it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to admit to my children that I've made mistakes, or admit to my employee subordinates that I've made mistakes. What do you think, Scott, are two questions here? Is to number one, what are elements that people can tend to look for within themselves to identify whether they tend to blame, or they have lack of accountability? And B, what tips can we look at to better present ourselves when we're talking to these other people in our lives, whether it is our children, or our business colleagues, or our clients, or our significant others?
So Scott, let me just ask you, just as you know, I have severe ADHD, and I love that about me. It's just one of my many quirks. But if you could just ask one question and let me answer that one, because the way my mind works, once I heard the two questions, my mind just separated, and then I got confused and didn't know what you were asking me. And before you do that, when you were asking, I just feel like I really need to throw something in there that's like direct with this word criticism. One of the things I've noticed that occurs in businesses, and I've got a nonprofit organization and a couple for-profits, and I have volunteers, interns, and people accountable to me. And we have policies and procedures. And there's this one policy that we have in all our all the people I work with, all the organizations, all the relationships I have, and it's this: do not send negatively, emotionally charged emails to anyone under any circumstance. So in other words, sometimes I might be angry. Well, then I'm not going to send an email to someone because, we've all had that happen. I know people that they do that. They it's one way they like to hide from being responsible. Maybe somebody did something that you perceived was wrong. Well, then approach that person when you're not making them wrong, when you don't have the anger, and have a conversation with them so you can, find out what was really going on and restore the love and affinity in that relationship. But I see a lot of times with business owners that treat their staff like crap, sending these negative emails, and it's like, it makes the person feel like, they're a loser, that maybe they're going to be fired. And try producing results from people when they're perceiving that you're controlling and you're abusing and you're bullying them.
That's awesome. You're one thing that's really important to me is my 15-year-old stepdaughter, and her, and what I'm witnessing in terms of communication in today's culture, whether it's communicating with my office landlord through text messages, but the point being here is electronic communication. And one point that I share with my audience quite a bit, Scott, is the 3 different ways that we can influence human behavior, influencing them whether we're trying to sell our product or service. But those 3 ways are the words we use, our tonality, and then of course our physiology. And each of them have different weights, and the words is about 7%, our tonality is about 35%, and our physiology is somewhere around 55 or 57% or something. Very close to the numbers. But the point being is the moment that we start to communicate electronically through text messages, Facebook, email, we lose 93% of that ability to influence human behavior. And far too often, as exactly with what you said, the misconceptions, just absolutely astronomical. And so the rule that you've just put out, no negativity in electronic communications. I've never heard it as blunt as that. And quite frankly, I was just say, quite frankly, I'm adopting that immediately, and that's a policy across the board. It should be wholeheartedly. I believe that.
And I just wanted to jump in, and then we take it at another level too, and which is because you use the word being responsible and accountable. So I choose to be responsible for the humanity in other people. In other words, I noticed as a culture, it seems like almost all of us have a tendency to beat ourselves up, to make ourselves feel bad. We're as human beings, we tend to, on the whole, focus on what's wrong with ourselves and what's wrong with the world or what's wrong with the business or what's wrong with my staff. And so I want to be responsible for that. So when I'm sending a message that's only written words, even if my intent is complete, there's no negative emotion behind it, I still pause and ask myself, knowing this person, is it possible that they might interpret the meaning of my communication to be something negative? And if that's the case, then I'm going to be really cautious of what I communicate, because like you said, and I agree, body language is most of communication. Just sending, written words, it's just, you can't communicate effectively what you're trying to say. And if you notice, that's why a lot of times when I'm communicating with you or other people, if I've got an inspired thought, I'll often just do a quick little video, because I don't want to risk the possibility of that, you might misinterpret what I'm trying to say, and you might think I'm mad at you when I'm completely not.
Yeah, just to share with some of my audience what Scott's talking about here, guys. Every once in a while, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll have an email, and I'll never forget the one. I woke up 7 o'clock in the morning, and I had an email from Scott and a little link, and he sends it to me, and he's on his treadmill at 4 o'clock in the morning with his camera on and running. It was great. It was, at first it's a little bit odd to be getting intimate, video messages, but as the thought goes on, and you bring up a point of video, 3-4 years ago, I begun investing money into video equipment, video skills, video knowledge. I recognize the power of video just for the sole reason that we're talking about right now, and realized that it was going to be an impact into the business world as well. And so both you and I, Scott, we've talked about how we've invested into our little video studios, and I think I just want to demonstrate to our audience how well, guys, first off, both Scott and I, we're in different countries, different cities, and we both have little green screen studios that we put together. We both recognize the importance of it. This is not even on a topic of discussion. But the point being is at Local Marketing Source, guys, we talk about flipping the switch, where I can just hit a button and start recording to be able to deliver a message, with the technology to be able to upload it and house it and create private content. Internal communication, like Scott says, is very, very easy. And to put something together, I don't know where Scott got his green screen, but I got mine at Hobby Lobby for $17. It's just green. It's just green. A green sheet. My camera is a digital SLR. You could use any type of camera, but the big thing with video, guys, is two things: lights and audio. Get yourself a plug-in microphone, get yourself a little bit of lights, and get yourself a little bit of skill set on video. I think that's a must for any entrepreneur. Have just at least management understanding of video. Sorry to sidetrack, Scott, and digress. I do digress, but I thought that was a good piece of advice, and I appreciate you sharing the importance.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that, because I don't think that's digression. We're in a new world where business is done completely different. So let me tell you about the green screen. Every room is green in our house. We got 3 floors, and we got green screen everywhere. I got 3 cameras. I got cameras everywhere. I just bought 16 more lights last week. And I say that, well, let me just give you, have you ever had, and I know we all have, but here's why. Why this is so powerful. We've all had like an inspired moment where we're thinking, oh man, I want to do business with this guy. And it's not even that. Like you want to connect with someone, and you got the exact words. You see it. It's like a divine moment, if you would, and you just see how it would benefit both of you. And then what do? Okay, you call them, or worse, you schedule them to call next week when you've lost the passion. But let's just say you call them. Then you get their voicemail, and then by the time they call you back, you're not in the moment, so they don't get the full expression of whatever, the full expression of your idea. So what I do, and that's why I have cameras everywhere, is that if I've got an idea, like recently, there's this old guy, this guy I used to know from 20 years ago, and I've seen him on Facebook, knew him briefly. He's a multimillionaire and a real estate marketing guru. And all of a sudden I had this inspired thought, ask for his help to come on over and spend some time with me and videotape it and get, and talk about how he can help me with marketing, blah, blah, blah. And I did it on a video. He saw the video, and then he came over and saw me. And then after that, I'm consulting with him on creating on videos for his TV studio, and all these things have occurred as a result of it. And I almost want to say that I've got 100% success on getting strategic appointments with anybody that I want when I do it on video. Now, it's not about the video. It's that I capture the moment, the inspiration. I capture the moment live when it's there. I don't wait 15 minutes later and try to remember that moment, because it doesn't come across as authentic. It comes across like you're trying to sell something.
You're able to record in different parts of your house. What type of advice do you have for any entrepreneur in terms of setting something up? Should they have a green screen, in your thoughts? Is that important? And how much money should they expect to spend?
It all depends. It all depends on budget, right? So when I first started, I talked to a TV celebrity kind of guy, friend of mine, and he said the most important thing is to get a camera first. And that camera, he said, the most important thing about cameras is that it's got an audio jack.
Yeah.
The most important thing about video is actually not the video; it's the audio. So that's where I started with a low definition camera, so the audio would be good. Then the next thing, of course, is if you got more money, moving up to the high definition. Then once you go up to high definition, then I'd say, get green screen. And you're right, you can get it really cheap.
Yeah.
And then you get the lights, and that's where it can get a bit expensive. But I don't think it really matters. You can go on YouTube. I just think get started. You got to embrace video. And even if you're uncomfortable with video, which I was, but I've been doing it for 2 years, and then I learned how to start editing stuff. Just do it anyway. You'll get better at it. It doesn't matter if you're a keynote speaker. It doesn't matter. People will get the essence of who you are. Like right now, I'm about to do a school program to 1,000 students in Peterborough. And part of the program is I've got to recruit and identify adults in the school that I'm going to allow to be in that 4-week program with the kids. So what do? I create a video message to the principal, and I'm talking to all the staff, and I'm saying to them, here's what's happening, here's what's going on, here's the opportunity, here's what you could get out of it, here's what I don't want. And then that video message goes out to all 100 staff members. And now I got an appointment today at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time to interview one of those adults. And one of my mentors, one of my business coaches, one of his clients is Pizza. And what he does for that client is he created a training website that's all based upon video. And Pizza gladly pays it, because what he explained to me is that the turnover rate in pizza makers is huge. So what they did is they created all these videos, and so a new pizza maker has to watch all these videos before they get to start work making pizzas. And then they quit, and then they hire someone else, and they watch these videos. Everything is video.
Well, that's I agree, man. I mean, look at YouTube. 70 hours of video is uploaded every minute to that place. It's just incredible. And but speaking of video, it really comes down to our physiology. That's a very important aspect. We're capturing our physiology. And so with that, are there any thoughts or tips that you could provide that I may want to be conscious about of my physiology if I'm sitting down with a prospect, if I'm trying to sell them my services? Simple little tips of physiology that might be important. You know, something that comes to mind to me are, you know, my arms being crossed in front of me, or having my arms opened up and trying to welcome.
Yeah.
And so, what are some of the
I'm
thoughts
actually
and tips?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that in a different way because I've been trained. I'm highly trained in neuro-linguistic programming. I can't tell you. I think I'm a master trainer. I studied all this stuff and modeling and mirroring people, and I actually don't use any of that stuff anymore. I might be doing it unconsciously, but for me, it's all about being your authentic you. Like when I was trying to match and mirror people, that's just a form of manipulation. And now my mind is actually focused on trying to make someone comfortable, as opposed to actually being with the person and listening to the person. And so if I had one tip, so to speak, on how you could be really powerful in business meetings, it's not to focus on that stuff. It's actually, again, it's not bad habits. It's what's a more powerful habit. And I'm gonna quote Stephen Covey, author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I'm going to quote him imperfectly. There's this thing he said in a seminar that I took years ago. He said, it was just a question. He said, what's the one activity that, if you did it consistently and effectively, would make the biggest difference in all areas of your life? Now, as you think about that question, I'm going to quote Jim Rohn. Personal growth expert. He's also, passed away recently, I believe. Yeah, he did. Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than you do on your business. Work harder on yourself than you do on your business. And so what I found, when I think about those two people and their message, the most important thing I could possibly do that would have an impact on influencing people would be related to my energy levels, my own feelings of self-confidence and energy and confidence. And for me, that's health, focusing on my health. So if I'm doing a keynote presentation, every single time I will jog at least 5 miles, even if the presentation's at 7 a.m. Even once when I was doing it on a First Nations reserve, when the First Nations people told me it's dangerous to do that, there's bears here and wolves, and you actually could get eaten if you jog that early. I'm jogging anyway, because I also know that when your energy's in a spirit of love like that, I believe God's going to protect me from those bears and wolves, and I was right that time. But anything you could possibly do as a habit that's going to increase your feeling of well-being, whether it's drinking water, whether it's physical exercise, do that before a key meeting. When I have a key meeting, like I'm going to, I've got a school board appointment tomorrow, like with all the directors, big meeting. Well, I eat differently 2 or 3 days before that appointment. Yes, I eat junk food from time to time. Yes, I eat bread. I eat all the crap that everybody does. But I don't put that junk in my body prior to an important key meeting.
Well, earlier we were talking about accountability, and I need to be accountable and take note of that, because I was working at home this morning and coming to the office for today's meeting, and stopped by McDonald's and chose McDonald's over having a nice sub delivered. I typically have a nice sub delivered, and eat there far too much, but far too much could still be a couple of times a week. And on the other side of that, I just invested, Scott, into a product at home called a Vitamix. Some people on the line may know what this is. It's the most used appliance in my kitchen now, and it's for healthy eating. And the impact of the elements that we do and what you're talking about, exercise and diet, It's just incredible the difference it has in our own being, and at the end of the day, that affects our attitude, and it ultimately affects our physiology. Our physiology affects our business success, which ultimately gives us more time at the end of the day. So I think we've just made a good argument that you know, some of these habits that we have is simple, you know, right on the first level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's food and shelter, um, and proper eating. And God, we far too often forget that. You know, here's a statistic that blows me away for all the Americans on the line, and we all have an average disposable income, and Americans are at the bottom of the list for the amount of money that they spend of their disposable income on food, and they're sitting around 6%. Canadians aren't that much better, sitting around 9 to 11%, meaning we spend about 9% of our disposable income on food. And then you take a country like France, that's, you know, up in the lower 20s, and really, you know, the United States, we spend so little on food because majority of products have high fructose corn syrups in them and hydrogenated oils. You had mentioned some unbleached, you know, enriched flour. These are all products that really bring the cost down significantly, increase the yield, but at the end of the day, they're not food. You know, ants aren't going to go and eat margarine, but they'll eat butter all day long. And that stuff, period, you might be saving a little bit on money, but you pay for it in your happiness, you pay for it in your well-being, you pay for it in your success, and then of course you pay for it in the length of your life. So I appreciate you bringing the concept up of working harder on self than on the business. And if you're not working harder on your own self, then your business is ultimately not going to survive either or be successful.
You might survive, but you might survive, but you might have the ongoing experience of survival and struggle. And as an emotion, that really sucks. That really sucks. Now, you did say something I just want to, you know how you said I need to be accountable to something here? And I just want to distinguish the difference between being accountable and being responsible. I think when you said, I want to be accountable here, I think you were actually being responsible. You were being responsible for your behavior by, you know, talking. But accountability is, I feel it's a little bit different. So sometimes there's something we're committed to accomplishing or achieving, whether it's a new habit or a new whatever, and we take responsibility, but then we still don't produce results. And my experience is that's because there's an accountability structure that's missing. And what that could look like is, for example, when I first started training with marathons, I knew I couldn't do that. So I joined a marathon running group, and I showed up Wednesdays and Sundays and ran with them. And so my accountability structure was every Wednesday and Sunday I run with these guys, and then I run the marathon on marathon days. So sometimes, I think oftentimes actually, when people are committed to making new changes in their life, I mean, you just look at, in the world of addiction, which, as I said, I'm not an expert, but look at diet. Most people will make changes, and they might lose weight, and then they go back to that old behavior at some point. Or they quit smoking, and it lasts for a while, and then they go back to it. Or they replace the smoking with the overeating. And my experience is what's missing is an accountability structure, or, being responsible and accountable to a community. So you spoke about, the law of attraction, the secret. My experience is that you attract who you are. You look at the people in your life, if the things you don't like about them, if you're really honest, those are qualities about yourself. If you're attracting people that are just like you. So one of the key components in all the work that I do, whether it's corporate or personal, whether it's transforming an organization's culture or transforming an organization's life, is to have people either join new communities or alter and transform the communities that exist within them right now. Accountability is key, because left to our own devices, we're always going to go back to what's easy and comfortable. And it's more easy and comfortable for me to eat junk food than it is to drink my 4.5 liters of water and then have my juice and my health shake. But I'm accountable to my girlfriend. I'm accountable to the people that I work with, and I'm constantly telling them, hey, I do drink all this water. Because I'm telling everybody about what I'm doing, I've now put in a social accountability structure that has me compelled to maintain the habit. And that's why I do so much pro bono work. Some people see me as this real saint kind of guy. I'm the founder of All Addictions Anonymous, a global 12-step organization. I'm constantly helping the most, destitute people that you can imagine, criminals, drug dealers on my spare time. And then I'm, doing all kinds of other stuff. Well, I do that for me because the more and Stephen Covey even said that, I think it's related to the 8th habit. If you want to master something, teach it. So I teach the things that I'm most committed to mastering because that's the structure of accountability.
That's some awesome stuff. I've got some great notes here, and one of the pieces of advice that you just shared was joining some new communities, and what suggestions, what are different groups of communities? I mean, I could throw some ideas out there, but I'd like to hear it from yourself, and I think others would like to hear, within themselves, if they're going to get off today's call and be responsible to themselves and be accountable to others and recognize, heck, you know what, there's a few things I want to change, and if I've got to put myself into different environments, what are some of these new communities that may be ideas, and how would one uncover some communities that may be relevant for them, whether it's volunteer work or hobbies or outside activities? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thought that came to me was, and then I went, no, don't do that. Don't say that thought because that's selfish and self-promotion, which I'm totally not about. But then I'm also about transparency, and so it's like, okay, well, just say it. When you said that, and I don't believe it's for everyone, but I just couldn't help but, first thought was my membership site, right, which you can sign up for, habitmaster.com. And I'll just say it really fast because I really don't want to make this about a sales pitch at all, but because that was the thought that came, habitmaster.com, you sign up for free, you get to see live transformations, me working with people that pay me $400 an hour, and some of them are pro bono. In fact, that's how you got to know me. You were on that site and watching me in action. So I just have to say that because the thought came, and I say it apologetically because, I had no intention of promoting on this call. We just want to provide real value. So that's my honest answer. But then now, that's not. I think the real place to start isn't habitmaster.com. It's actually taking a look at what you're committed to. So if you're committed to, transforming your marketing, and I guess I'm going to apologize. I'm going to end up promoting you here indirectly, but as a possible thing, you've got a membership site, you've got a community you've created of like-minded people that are small, mid-sized business owners that are coming together to support one another to progress in their business success. So there's something right there. That's a community. If it was if a person had addiction problems, that's why people go to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's like we may share a similar problem, an alcohol problem, but we're going to go there and support one another, and many people recover and get free. We may have a financial business marketing challenge, but together we're going to go to local marketing source and as a community, support one another. And, it doesn't have to be about that. It can be about anything. Like, say it was about health. Well, look around you. Is there anyone around you that you feel safe with? Meaning they're not going to, be a militant coach and now start, forcing you into some agenda to have you run a marathon when that's not what you want to do. And then they're going to, be this, bullying type of coach on you and put all this pressure on you that's going to freak you out, make you want to just, avoid them. But there's got to be people in your life that it might be scary to reach out to them, but they're producing a result that you'd like to be producing, and maybe go, have a conversation with them. and then find out if they know of some communities, or maybe they might be the beginning of the community. And this takes me back to, I'm 47, my early days in my 20s when I owned this firm called the Executive Network, which was really, it started with just me. But I was constantly listening to all the self-help programs, like, Bob Proctor and all of them. And I'd even listen to them in my sleep. I was recording all this self-help and business group stuff and putting it onto a VHS tape so I could listen to 8 hours of it while I was sleeping. And there was one exercise that Bob Proctor said to do. It was all about, the program was called Mission in Commission. He said, find out who the top 6 competitors of yours are that are making like big bucks, like at least $1 million, and you go ask them if you can take them out for lunch and pick their brains. And I actually did that. I asked my clients who they were dealing with instead of me, who they felt were the top producers. And I tracked them down, and I got appointments with every single one of them. One of them, the one that made the biggest difference in my life, Harold Perry, he looked like Gecko from Wall Street. He actually turned me down 3 times in a row, and every time he'd say no, I'd schedule a follow-up like months away, so hoping that he'd forget me by then. And then I finally got in the door, and that one meeting changed the whole way I did business to the point where I went from making 40 grand a year maximum to like 236 grand in a 6-figure income comfortably in headhunting from that, and that was part of community. That was part of community, reaching out to people that are doing what it is I want to do. Or getting the result I want to get, I should say.
That's fantastic. There's a lot of different communities. I'm kind of chuckling on this end here that, I don't think we could have planned getting to the end of this webinar a little bit better by discussing communities and then, of course, self-promoting our own. And I know you say that with, that wasn't your intention, and nor was it our intention to discuss Local Marketing Source, but it reminds me of a story actually when I was buying my first video camera, and exactly with what you said is it needed a microphone input, and I went to Best Buy, and that feature was extremely important to me. It was the one feature that I had to have on my camera, period. We both know why. And so I told the salesman that. And he asked other questions like budget, and I said, $500. And so he started showing me cameras in the $450, $480 price range. And then I said to him, none of these have a microphone input. I really need that. He said, but sir, all the cameras that have a microphone input are out of your budget. And while, from his particular argument, that's one thing, but on the other side of it, I'm a cheap guy. If somebody's going to ask me budget, I'm not going to shoot high over the fact, but I did identify, I said, you know what, this is what I need, and I'm willing to pay for it. And so in today's world, it doesn't matter where you go, we know that we pay for things. We got a lot of people on this call right now that understand, hey, I'm getting a free webinar, but they also understand that, we've got businesses behind this, and we're trying to earn the right to do business with people. Well, I'll tell prospective clients all day long, look, Mr. Prospect, my objective today is to earn the right to do business with you. I want to prove to you that I can service your particular needs. So I really appreciate you saying that. You'd also mentioned, how we're a lot like the people that are around us. Somebody once told me that we're the average of the 5 closest people around us. And so taking an inventory, every year I joke around and I say I purge my own communities, at New Year's. I fire all those people around me that I just don't aspire to be like. And when you're looking at yourself and doing a self-inventory of that, I like one thing that you really said, Scott, and when we're looking at, well, how can I look at new communities? And taking an inventory of who do I know that I want to aspire to be like? Who do I know that's got successful results that I want? And just go to them and be real and vulnerable and blunt. But there's also other ways as well to identify different communities that may be for you.
Scott, let me jump in right there.
Go ahead.
What I was present to is, like, this is the power of community right now. You know, our story, you know, you reached out to me when you were really, really struggling, and it took so much courage for you to reach out to a complete stranger and ask for help. And that's where it started. And then, you know, it began. You were reaching out to community. You were doing exactly what I said to do. You were saying, there's things in my life that aren't working. Who is it that I know that could help me? And you didn't know anyone. You went to the next level, and you found me. And then, you know, that's how the relationship began. And then what happened, you know, a few months ago is I was telling you that, you know, I suck at marketing. I could really use some help. And then you just generously, you know, just offered to help me with marketing. You gave me some great advice. You said you unconditionally want to, you know, send out some kind of email to your 15,000 people about my membership site that all the proceeds go to, you know, help kids at risk. And it was like, it was from the heart. And let's look at what's really happening here. You were very generous to say, Scott, thank you very much for being on this call. And if you notice, I stumbled and it was like my words were like, sounded like bullshit coming out of my mouth. And that's because it completely was bullshit. I was like, how can I possibly thank you when you and I both know that the reason you did this is that you wanted to give me some exposure to your audience unconditionally. You don't want any kind of affiliate marketing percentage out of the kindness of your heart. And you would only do so if you could find a way that could provide great value to your audience. So that's the power of community. It began with you, and here we are continuing with you. So thank you.
Yeah, well, we don't have an affiliate relationship at all. Just to go out there, guys, this is not about business. This is not your typical webinar that anybody would conduct in the internet marketing field. But let's face it, it's real. You know, one of my favorite expressions is we all make the same face on the shitter. You know, we could say that a little more politically correct, but at the end of the day, it's got some very big meaning to it. Doesn't matter what country you come from, what age group you are, what culture you come from. We're human beings, and we've got basic human needs, and we go into business to fulfill some of those needs. And so, you know, I think a moral of today's story is very good, that, you know, the moment that you go into business to start chasing the money, you're going to struggle. But when you could start chasing your passion, and for me, it's to share stories and share information and share items like this, the money tends to follow, and that's true. And so I just want to quickly review here some of the things that we've talked about and some of the tips that Scott's identified in today's conversation. Is number one, you know, he had mentioned no electronic communication, no negative electronic communication, period. Pick up the phone or go and visit them in person if you want to convey a particular message or utilize video. We talked about physiology and the importance of physiology in many different aspects of public speaking and whatnot. And a couple of tips. And then Scott had mentioned to work harder on yourself than on your business. Very, very important to do so. And you can do that through your physical means of health, weight training or exercises, different mental aspects, and reading and education. And then finally, communities and the power of communities and joining communities and being around people that are important, and looking and doing a self-inventory of who do I know, and pick them up and give a phone call. And so I think those are 4 bang-on tips that will help put bigger smiles on people's lives in the morning when they wake up. And so with that, you know, if you want to go check out Scott a little bit more, my name is Scott Patrick Gallagher. This is Scott Francis Gallagher, and he is the Habit Master, and you can find Scott at habitmaster.com. I am personally a member of his program. I pay $20 a month. Whatever. It's that's pocket change. It's for most people. quite frankly, $20 a month is pocket change for absolutely everybody if it's gonna help improve your life. You know, it's stupid. Sorry, it's the wrong word to use, but it's elements like, you know, aspects. I go and visit a chiropractor, and I don't go because I got a bad back. I go because of wellness, and I spend extra money on organic, and organic foods are 3 times the amount of money as regular foods. Why do you do stuff like that? And these are just investments into myself. And I don't care what you're doing in life. If you're not investing into yourself, if you're not investing into continued education, into the further expanding your knowledge of trying to live a better life, you could just chalk it up as being a cranky, grumpy person down the road, in my opinions. My opinion, that's singular. I guess I have a lot of opinions. But on that note, you know, I think, I don't know how much time Scott's got, and, you know, we've got to, I've got another member call coming up very soon, but I would like to open the floor. I don't know if we're going to have a lot of questions for this type of meeting, but Scott, if there's anything else that you would like to add, and if anybody's got some questions, just go ahead and raise your hands or post it into the questions or the chat box, and I'll take a look there.
Yes. Yeah, Scott, there's just one thing I would want to say, and I can be on the call for, as I said, I've got a call at 3:30, so the absolute latest 3:25, but the only thing that I feel out of my commitment that this call is actually, you know, provided maximum value to people is, see, it's my experience that you can have all the knowledge and insights and tools and tips, but if it's not followed with some type of action, then it just really is just, you know, another reason to feel bad about yourself, because now you learned all this stuff and you're not doing anything about it. So I would feel this call was really, I feel like it was really valuable. If people could just look, and I just want to challenge people, and if it doesn't feel right to accept my request, please don't you know, honor yourself and don't say yes to what I'm going to request. But I'd like that everyone on the call to take a look at their life and look at an area of their life that's really not working, that they'd like to see some improvement or some change occur in that area. And then I'd like you to make a commitment to yourself that is as tiny as you can possibly make it, so that you don't have an excuse to do nothing or put it off and forget about this commitment. So maybe it's like, I'm going to send an email to this person because I can hide behind an email and then I can handle the rejection, and I'm going to make a request of this person. Or maybe I'm going to, you know, make a phone call and talk to a travel agency and explore really what would the cost be to go on that dream vacation I gave up on, which was to go to Fiji, you know, for, you know, just some tiny action that you'll actually take today, you know, before you go to bed.
I like that.
And then tell someone. And then tell someone. And then tell someone you made the commitment. So that you got someone in your life, you know, that you, when every time you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, I made a commitment. Oh, I better do that thing.
So I'm going through some of the questions here in the questions box. I haven't gone and checked to see if there's any hands up. But, you know, Gino goes on and he says, you know, Scott is making a lot of sense. And then he goes and asks, he says, how can we create new good habits? Keith goes and asks if there's a recording that's going to be available. Yes, Keith, we are recording this. It is going to be available. Gino asks, what's a good SLR? He's asking what's a good DSLR camera to buy. I'm not a camera expert, but I went with Canon, the T3i. It's inexpensive. You can check that. And then Andy says, you know, how is this helping us break bad habits? And then Andy says, oh, sorry, that was sort of negative. I do hope we hear more about bad habits, though. And then Gino asks the same thing. So, Scott, I'm really glad that you've tied that up as well. That really addresses their questions of, you know, how can we break some of this? And that's being accountable. You know, one step, of course, is being accountable to others. One thing that I want to remind people, though, you know, I'm 37 years old, guys. And when I identify particular habits in my life, sometimes I feel really stupid. I feel incapable. But I've got to recognize that I've got 37 years that I've built a particular habit. when you start talking about elements and aspects of brain plasticity and rewiring and all of that stuff, and being able to change that particular habit, you've got to be committed. You've got to be ready to be able to change that particular habit and look back at it. And so being accountable to someone else and really admitting to somebody else, this is what I'm going to do, is a fantastic piece of advice. Scott mentions the DSLR, the T4i. He says he uses it to shoot. What do I have? Oh, Robert says the Canon T3i is good too. That's the one I've got. The Nikon D5100 is a great alternative. So those are the...
I think really, in terms of cameras, the only thing I would suggest is make sure, because cameras are so cheap now, if you can afford it, get a 1980, what is it, 1980 1080p?
1080, yeah.
And that has an external microphone.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Really think it matters. With that, no, it's 1920 1080p, I think. Is that how it is?
That's the resolution, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, external mic's really important, and the T3i does have it.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's everything, guys. I'd like to conclude today's webinar. As suspected, nobody's got their hands up. We've had some really decent attendance this webinar. I'm really happy to see. I was really concerned about this content and the fallout rate, and we have one of our highest attentive percentages of all webinars. So that's fantastic. Really good to hear some good content. And Scott, once again, thank you very much.
Ditto.
All right, dude. You have yourself a good afternoon. Everyone else have a great day. And till next time. Bye for now.
All right, brother.
Yeah. Later, man.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected. Goodbye.